Chapter 1. 3 years into her marriage, Elena Hayes received a wedding invitation. From her husband, Julian Vance. Elena froze, her first thought a prank, cruel and elaborate. But the invitation came from her own niece, Jenna Miller. And the bride named on the embossed card was Jenna herself. A heavy pressure settled in Elena's chest. Riddled with confusion and a creeping dread, she immediately booked a flight to the private Caribbean resort listed on the invitation. When she arrived, a wedding was indeed in full swing. There he was. Her husband, Julian Vance, his arm wrapped around her niece's waist, the two of them laughing as they toasted their guests. Time seemed to stop. For a split second, Elena wondered if her eyes were deceiving her. Maybe this man just bore a striking resemblance to her husband, but a burst of fireworks in the sky shattered her last sliver of denial. Against the foreign night, the brilliant blue sparks formed two perfect, unmistakable names. Congratulations, Julian Jenna. Elena's mind went blank, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in her ears. A wave of nausea churned in her stomach. The intense emotional storm manifested as a physical agony, and she clapped a hand over her mouth, stumbling toward the restroom to be sick. Just then, Julian and his groomsmen headed into the men's room next door. Through the thin wall, Elena heard one of them laugh. "Julian, you're a legend, marrying Elena back in Chicago and Jenna out here. One for the homeland, one for abroad. You gave them both a wedding, both the respectability. Who says you can't have your cake and eat it too? Our boy Julian can. But I thought it was always the kid, Jenna, who was chasing you." Another voice chimed in. "I remember you couldn't have been less interested." At this, Julian's voice, dark and smooth as midnight, lowered. "I wasn't. To me, she was just a kid. But during those 2 years I was in the wheelchair," he continued, "Jenna was the one who took care of me. No matter how I hit her, swore at her, told her to get the hell out. She stayed by my side, she never gave up on me. A young girl loving that fiercely, even with a heart of stone, I couldn't remain unmoved." On the other side of the wall, tears streamed down Elena's face. So it started 3 years ago. Julian and Elena were childhood sweethearts. His possessiveness over her had been fierce since they were kids. In high school, if another boy so much as spoke to her for too long, Julian would beat him up. But with her, he was infinitely gentle. Elena loved the artisanal pastries from a small bakery on the other side of the city, so he would wake up 2 hours early every morning to buy them for her breakfast. He did this for over a decade, from middle school all the way through college. On her 18th birthday, he rented out a conservatory and filled it with 1,000 candles. "Be my girlfriend, Elena," he'd declared, not asked. "I won't take no for an answer. If you refuse, I'll just have to kidnap you and lock you in my house." On her 22nd birthday, he lit up the night sky with a custom fireworks display. Each explosion of light was a message, spelling out his desire for the whole city to see. "Marry me, Elena." He was arrogant, domineering, even his proposal a command. But Elena, who had been cherished and protected by him her entire life, had never thought to refuse. She loved Julian. She loved his dominance and his tenderness in equal measure. Tragedy struck shortly after they were married. An enemy of his business empire orchestrated a car crash, leaving Julian with paralyzed legs. The man who once commanded the world from his feet was suddenly a cripple confined to a wheelchair. Julian couldn't handle the fall from grace. He became volatile, self-destructive, and suicidal. Within 3 months, he had wasted away into a ghost of his former self. "Elena," he'd whispered to her, his eyes hollow, "I'm a cripple now. I don't deserve you anymore, but I can't stand the thought of you with another man. The idea of you leaving me, in someone else's arms, it makes me so jealous I could destroy the world. I don't want to hurt you, Elena. I've already signed the divorce papers. But as long as I'm alive, I can't accept you leaving me. Let me die. Only when I'm dead will you be free." Elena, of course, refused. She loved him, disabled or not. But at the time, Julian was hell-bent on dying. No amount of her tears or pleading worked. In her desperation, a lifeline appeared. Her former professor invited her to join a top-secret research project, developing a drug that could reactivate spinal nerve cells. Julian's paralysis was due to severe spinal cord trauma. If the drug was a success, he might walk again. It was a ray of hope in the darkness. Elena immediately accepted. The research lab was in a remote facility, and Julian couldn't stand the thought of her being so far away. He had a heart-shaped locket forged from pure gold and with his own hands installed a micro camera inside. "Elena, I think I'm sick," he'd said, his voice raw with a desperate need. "But I have to be in control of your every move, or I'll go insane. You're my life. I can't let you out of my sight." Elena understood his paranoid possessiveness. To put his mind at ease, she willingly put on the locket and flew to the research facility. 2 years later, she returned with the new drug. It was miraculously effective. After a short period of physical therapy, Julian stood up from his wheelchair. Elena cried with joy. She thought she had saved her marriage, that the formidable man who could command the wind and clouds had returned to her. But who could have imagined that in the 2 years she was gone, her own niece had slithered in and stolen everything that was hers. And she, like a fool, had known nothing. She had even frequently invited Jenna to stay over at their home. Tears blurred her vision as Elena clawed her way out of the memories. She heard Julian's voice again, this time cold and commanding. "Not a word of this gets back to Elena. Every one of you keep your mouths shut. If anyone lets this slip, don't blame me for being ruthless." The groomsmen laughed. "Relax, Julian, you think we dare? We all know Elena. She has a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of thing. If she found out about you and Jenna, she'd be gone for good. We'd have to answer to you with our lives." Elena managed a hollow smile. She slipped out of the wedding reception in a daze, numbly boarding a flight back home. The entire journey felt like a waking dream, surreal and unreal. Back in her Chicago penthouse, Elena opened the safe and took out a document. It was the divorce agreement Julian had signed when he was disabled. She hadn't signed it then, but now, without a moment's hesitation, she signed her name. "Julian," she thought, a bitter ache in her chest, "I never imagined that in the end, it wasn't your disability that destroyed us. It was our 2 years apart. You said Jenna never left you during those 2 years. But what about me? The one who went to a godforsaken desert for you, developing a drug to save you, all under your constant surveillance. What was I? If you can't be faithful, then I don't want you anymore." Chapter 2. After signing the divorce papers, Elena called her professor. "Professor, I've changed my mind," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I'm ready to rejoin the team. I'll go to the Atlantic to work on the new pharmaceutical." "Are you serious? That's wonderful news," her professor exclaimed. "The team departs for the Atlantic in 10 days. The military will send an escort for you. But Elena, I have to remind you, this new project is a classified government initiative. Once you join, for all intents and purposes, you'll vanish from the face of the earth. Your husband is so possessive. Will he agree to this?" A sad, hollow laugh escaped Elena's lips. "It doesn't matter. He already has a new wife. I'm done being his bird in a gilded cage." She used to be willing to be controlled by Julian because she loved him. Now, the heart that had loved him was shattered, crushed by his own hands, beyond repair. After the call, Elena began to pack, moving like an automaton. She hadn't gotten far when Julian returned. "Elena, why is your suitcase out? Are you going somewhere?" Julian asked, his brows furrowed. "Where are you going? Why didn't you clear it with me first?" "I was on a business trip for 1 week, and you're already planning to leave without my knowledge." Elena lowered her gaze. "Do I no longer even have the right to leave the house?" "Of course not." Julian softened his tone, coaxing her. "I'm just worried about your safety. You know how ruthless I was when I first took over the company. I made a lot of enemies. If you want to go on a trip, I can go with you. Elena, you're my life. I can't stand having you out of my sight." Elena said nothing, thinking silently to herself, "What a shame. In 10 days, I'll disappear from your world completely. I just got back from my trip. You're not going anywhere right now except to my side," Julian said, taking the suitcase from her hand. He leaned down and kissed her. "Be good, I have a surprise for you. It's in the rose garden." Every time Julian came back from a business trip, he brought Elena a gift. He would hide it somewhere in their sprawling penthouse, then watch with a doting expression as she played a treasure hunt to find it. It had been their favorite game. Whenever he was away, Elena would count the minutes until he returned. But now, there was an extra person in the rose garden. Auntie Elena, Jenna, came bounding over, linking her arm with Elena's. "Julian told me to come. He said he brought a gift back for me from his trip, too, and hid it in the rose garden." Elena was Jenna's maternal aunt. By rights, after her marriage to Julian, Jenna should have called him Uncle Julian. But Jenna refused. Even after 3 years, she still called him Julian with an unsettling familiarity. "Come on, Auntie Elena, let's hunt for treasure together," Jenna said, her face alight with excitement. "Let's see what Julian got for us." The treasure hunt, once a private game for just the two of them, now included a third. Elena's face stiffened. Seeing her expression, Julian whispered soothingly, "Elena, don't be so stingy. Yesterday was Jenna's birthday and I missed it. I just wanted to make it up to her with a little gift." Yesterday was Jenna's 18th birthday. The moment she was legal, he had married her. A profound sadness washed over Elena. The treasure hunt, once her favorite game, now felt utterly meaningless. In the end, Jenna found a pile of gifts. Elena found only one. A single, thorny rose, exquisitely sculpted from pigeon's blood rubies, its thorns made of glittering diamonds. "Elena always finds the best one," Julian said, his eyes filled with an all-consuming love as he looked at her. "You may have only found one piece, but it's the most precious." A flash of jealousy crossed Jenna's eyes. She pouted, her voice a small whisper. "Julian, I want the ruby rose too. I'll give all my gifts to Auntie Elena. Can you let me have the ruby rose, Auntie?" Elena said nothing, her gaze fixed on Julian. 3 years of marriage. She wanted to know, once and for all, if she weighed more in his heart than Jenna. An expression of conflict crossed Julian's face. After a moment's silence, he took the ruby rose from Elena's hand and gave it to Jenna. "Elena, it's a belated birthday present for Jenna. Just let her have it this once," he said. "If you like the ruby rose so much, I'll buy you an even bigger one later." In that instant, Elena's heart plunged into an icy abyss. He chose Jenna. Julian, the man who had always put her first, had just prioritized Jenna. "No, thank you," she said, the disappointment welling up inside her, making it impossible to remain calm. She wrenched her arm from his grasp and turned to leave. "I only want things that are one of a kind. If you've given it to someone else, I don't want it anymore. And you, Julian, are no different. You were supposed to be mine alone. If you also belong to someone else, then I don't want you anymore." Chapter 3. That evening, a new ruby rose from Julian arrived. It was also carved from precious pigeon's blood rubies, even larger and more beautiful than the first. But Elena no longer wanted it. She tossed it into the swimming pool without a second glance. But no sooner had the ruby sunk beneath the water than Jenna jumped in after it. She made a show of trying to retrieve the jewel, but the pool water was crystal clear, and the ruby was large and dazzlingly bright. Anyone genuinely trying could have fished it out in minutes. Yet Jenna thrashed around in the pool for nearly half an hour. She only hauled herself out, dripping wet, when Julian came downstairs. "Auntie Elena, please don't be angry anymore, okay?" Jenna said, holding up the retrieved ruby rose with a placating look. "I don't want the one Julian gave me yesterday. You can have both. Just please stop being mad at him." Jenna was soaked to the bone. She was wearing a long, white dress, and the drenched hem was stained with blood. Julian's face instantly became terrifying. He stormed down the stairs, tore off his own jacket, and wrapped it around Jenna. "Are you insane? Jumping into a pool when you're on your period?" he snarled, his face dark. "You've always had a weak constitution and terrible cramps. You can't be in cold water." Jenna's face was pale. She collapsed weakly into Julian's arms and sobbed, "Julian, don't yell at me. I just didn't want you and Auntie to fight. I hate seeing you frown. I just want you to be happy." In an instant, Julian's dark eyes filled with heartache. At the same time, his gaze toward Elena sharpened with blame. "Elena, there's a limit to jealousy. Jenna is still a child. Why are you competing with her?" With that, Julian swept Jenna up into his arms and carried her out, presumably to the hospital. Elena's body began to tremble uncontrollably. He kept calling Jenna a child, yet he knew the exact timing of her period, knew she'd had cramps since she was young, and knew she couldn't handle cold water. Elena suddenly remembered how Julian used to track her period with uncanny accuracy. She could never remember, but he would always have sanitary pads and heating pads ready for her, watching her like a hawk to make sure she didn't eat anything cold. But now, his mind and heart were completely filled with Jenna. He had completely forgotten that these were the days of her period, too. Later that night, Jenna posted an update. "I guess I really am his cherished rose. Just for some minor cramps, he booked out the entire hospital wing for me and rubbed my stomach all night." Elena stared at the words, her eyes feeling as if they'd been pricked by 1,000 needles. Her cramps were severe, too. In the past, whenever her period came, Julian would pull her onto his lap, murmuring sweet nothings while his warm hands massaged her lower abdomen. But now, Elena was pale with pain, and the space beside her on the bed was cold and empty. Julian's arms were already wrapped around someone else. The love he had given her was never one of a kind. The pain in her stomach intensified. Elena curled up like a wounded animal, clutching the blankets. She was drenched in a cold sweat, eventually drifting into a hazy sleep amidst the agony. Not long after she fell asleep, a commotion erupted outside. Elena forced her eyes open and heard someone shouting, "Fire, the rose garden is on fire, somebody, put it out." Chapter 4. The roses in the garden were all planted by Julian's own hands. Hundreds of acres, tens of thousands of roses, each one a love letter written from him to Elena. "Elena, roses represent love," he had said, "but store-bought roses are too cheap to represent my love for you, so I built you this rose garden. From now on, every day, I will give you a rose that I've grown with my own hands." Now, that same garden was inexplicably on fire. Despite everything, Elena's heart clenched involuntarily. She threw on a robe and, on unsteady feet, went to see what was happening. But the moment she stepped out of her room, she was knocked over by a frantic servant rushing to fight the fire. She tumbled down the grand staircase. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Julian was sitting by her side, his dark eyes bloodshot, his expression terrifying. "Elena, you're awake?" Seeing her stir, his face softened slightly. He grabbed her hand, his voice filled with anguish. "You fell down the stairs and hit your head. How do you feel? Are you dizzy?" Elena shook her head, her voice a faint whisper. "I remember, the rose garden was on fire." Julian's expression darkened again. He pulled her into an embrace and kissed her forehead. "It's fine. If it burned, it burned. If you like, I'll build you a new one." Just as he finished speaking, a nurse hurried in. "Mr. Vance, Miss Miller says her stomach hurts. You should go check on her." The expression on Julian's face froze for a second. He released Elena, forcing a casual tone. "Elena, you see, your sister and brother-in-law have spoiled Jenna rotten, making such a fuss over a little cramping. I'll go check on her, make sure she's not bullying the nurses. You get some rest. I'll be right back." After saying that, he left without a moment's hesitation. A bitter taste filled Elena's mouth. "Julian, was it my sister and her husband who spoiled her, or was it you?" As she lay there, her phone buzzed. It was a video from Jenna. In the video, Jenna was curled up in Julian's arms, crying pitifully. "Julian, I'm so sorry, it's all my fault. I'm so clumsy. If I had been more careful when I was looking for the gifts yesterday, if I hadn't been pricked by the rose thorns, you wouldn't have sent people to burn down the rose garden just to get back at them for me, and Auntie wouldn't have gotten hurt." At her words, Julian reached out and stroked her head with a doting hand. His voice was languid, laced with the arrogance of a man in power. "It was just a rose garden, it's nothing. Jenna, you are my woman. I won't let anyone or anything hurt you, even an inanimate object. If it dares to scratch you, I'll turn it to ash." The video ended there, and in that moment, Elena's heart shattered into a million pieces. Julian had once said that every rose in that garden was a declaration of his love for her. But now, just because a thorn had pricked Jenna's finger, he had sent people to burn it all to the ground, tens of thousands of roses, tens of thousands of I love yous, all worthless compared to a single thorn in Jenna Miller's finger. For the next few days, Julian shuttled back and forth between Elena's and Jenna's hospital rooms. He wanted to have them both. He couldn't let either of them go. Elena just felt a profound chill, no longer wanting any interaction with him. However, just as she was about to be discharged, Jenna appeared in her room. "Auntie Elena, you're so composed. You even attended my wedding with Julian and didn't dare to make a scene," Jenna said, her usual innocent facade gone, replaced by a venomous smile. "You're such a coward." "Actually, I get it. You're old now, you can't compete with a young, beautiful girl like me. You're afraid that if you expose the truth, Julian will leave you. So you pretend everything is fine, you lie to yourself that he still loves you." Jenna let out a derisive laugh. "You older women love to deceive yourselves. Since you're not willing to face reality, let your dear niece help you out." As she spoke, a malicious grin spread across her face as she pulled a bundle of dynamite from her purse. Chapter 5, Elena's body went rigid. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at Jenna. Jenna, what are you doing? Don't worry, it won't kill you, Jenna said with a sweet smile. I just want you to see, once and for all, who Julian will save first when we're both in danger. With that, Jenna tossed the dynamite into an empty corner of the room. Boom, with a deafening roar, the room collapsed. Both Elena and Jenna were buried under the rubble. Dust and debris filled the air. Elena coughed violently, trying to move, but she was pinned, trapped. A steel rebar had pierced her shoulder, blood pouring from the wound. Her consciousness was fading. Through the chaos, Elena saw Julian rushing toward them, his face a mask of desperation. "Julian, I'm here," Elena gasped, using her last ounce of strength. "Save me," but Julian seemed not to have heard her at all. His eyes were fixed on Jenna. He heaved a massive block of concrete off her, then pulled her protectively into his arms. "Jenna, don't be afraid. I'm here," Julian, the man who never flinched even when mountains crumbled before him, now had a rare look of panic on his face. He held Jenna so tightly it was as if he wanted to merge her into his very flesh. In that instant, a torrent of tears streamed down Elena's face. She watched as Julian carried Jenna away, never once looking back. "Julian, this is my room," Elena whispered, lying in the ashes, letting the tears flow freely. "Julian, this is my hospital room. Did you really not know I was in here? Or is it that, in this moment, your eyes and your heart are so full of Jenna that there's no room for anyone else?" In that moment, Elena's world shattered, leaving nothing but an endless, suffocating darkness. When she woke up again, she was back in their penthouse. "Elena, you're finally awake," Julian's voice trembled slightly. His eyes were bloodshot, and his entire demeanor was unstable. "If anything had happened to you, I would have blown up the entire hospital." Elena didn't speak. The image of Julian carrying Jenna away was seared into her mind. Her heart was filled with nothing but sorrow and desolation. "Elena, are you angry that I saved Jenna first?" Julian asked hesitantly. "I didn't know you were in the room too. Besides, Jenna's just a kid. As her uncle, I saw her first. I couldn't just stand by. Saving her was just a sense of duty. But Elena, if anything had happened to you, I would have died with you." As he spoke, he gently took her hand. He was about to say more when the sound of a cup shattering came from the doorway. Jenna stood there, her eyes red-rimmed, the broken pieces of a cup at her feet. She looked utterly heartbroken. She had heard every word Julian just said. Julian's face went white. Before he could explain, Jenna covered her face and ran away, sobbing. Julian instinctively moved to chase after her, but when his eyes met Elena's cold, indifferent gaze, he stopped himself. "Silly girl," Julian said with a forced laugh. "Don't mind her. Elena, you're the most important person in my heart." For the next few days, Julian stayed by Elena's side, never leaving her for a moment. He canceled all his work to care for her meticulously. He fed her, changed her bandages, washed her hands and feet. He even followed her to the bathroom, refusing to let her out of his sight for a single second. Until one day, news came from the family that Jenna was missing. "Jenna hasn't been home for a whole week," Jenna's father said, his face etched with worry. "Julian, you haven't seen her either? Where on earth could that child have gone?" Julian's expression instantly became terrifying. He immediately summoned all his men and began a city-wide search for Jenna. Elena watched Julian's frantic display with calm, emotionless eyes. She was completely disillusioned with him. Whatever he did now, she no longer cared. Chapter 6. Julian Vance's power in Chicago was absolute. Within a single day, he found the missing Jenna. She huddled in his arms like a frightened rabbit, glancing timidly at Elena before starting to sob. Auntie Elena said I was shameless, that I was seducing her husband, so she had people send me to a disciplinary academy to learn some manners. It was the first time she had ever called him her uncle-in-law. A terrifying aura radiated from Julian. He shot a glacial look at Elena, the pressure in his gaze enough to silence anyone. "Elena, there's a limit to your jealousy, she's still a child. Do you have any idea what a disciplinary academy is? It's not a place to learn manners. It's a torture chamber. Jenna was subjected to electroshock, whipped. She almost died in there. He didn't even bother to ask Elena for her side of the story. He had already condemned her. In the past, Elena would have been devastated, but now she didn't care anymore. "I didn't do it," Elena said calmly. "Believe it or not, it's up to you. I'm tired. I want a rest." With that, Elena lay back down, turning her back to him, presenting a silhouette that was both cold and stubbornly defiant. A flicker of emotion crossed Julian's dark eyes, but before he could speak, Jenna clung to him in feigned terror. "Julian, I'm so scared they called me a slut. They said they were going to sew me up down there." Julian immediately turned his attention to Jenna, his expression softening with pity. "SHH, don't be afraid, I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you." Elena closed her eyes. She didn't want to see, didn't want to hear, and refused to think about any of it anymore. Tomorrow, she would be gone. When it came to Julian, there was nothing left to say but a final goodbye. That night, however, someone broke into Elena's room. Before she could scream, a cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed over her face. She was blindfolded with a black hood, and her hands were bound. The whole operation was swift and clean. When Elena regained consciousness, she found her hands and feet tied, her head covered by a black sack, and her mouth sealed with several layers of tape. "What's happening?" Elena was completely bewildered. "Have I been kidnapped? By who? One of Julian's enemies?" As she tried to make sense of it, Julian's chilling voice came from above her. "Jenna, is this her? Is this the matron from the academy who tortured you? Why is her head covered? Take off the hood. I want to see who has the audacity to touch Julian Vance's woman." At his words, a look of panic crossed Jenna's face. "No, Julian, don't take it off." She burrowed into his arms, sniffling. "Julian, I'm scared. That woman tortured me for a whole week. I have trauma. I'm terrified of seeing her face." "All right, we won't," Julian cooed, stroking her hair. "SHH, don't cry. I'll get justice for you." Listening to their exchange, Elena finally understood. The disciplinary academy, the abuse, it was all a setup orchestrated by Jenna. Her kidnapping was undoubtedly Jenna's doing as well. She had gone to all this trouble for one reason: to make Julian torture Elena with his own hands. A cold sweat broke out over Elena's body. Julian's methods of torture were notoriously cruel. To fall into his hands meant a fate worse than death. MMPH. Elena struggled desperately, trying to make a sound, anything to make Julian recognize her. But her mouth was sealed shut. As she struggled, Julian casually walked over. He ordered his men to pin Elena's right hand to a table. Then, with a chilling smile, he picked up a hammer. "So this is the hand you used to whip Jenna?" Julian's voice was laced with a smile, but in the next second, the hammer came down, crashing onto Elena's little finger. Crack! The pain was so intense it shot straight to her heart. Elena almost blacked out, but it wasn't over. Julian, still with that horrifyingly casual demeanor, lifted the hammer and, in one fluid motion, brought it down on her ring finger. The very finger where he had once placed a diamond ring, a promise of eternal love. Now, with his own hands, he had shattered it. The immense pain made Elena's vision go black. But at this moment, unconsciousness was a luxury she wouldn't be afforded. She had barely passed out for 2 seconds before a splash of pepper-laced water shocked her awake. "Don't pass out now," Julian's low, magnetic voice murmured, laced with a morbid sickness. "The night is young, we're going to take our time." Chapter 7. Elena never knew a single night could be so long. Her right hand, the hand she used for her delicate lab work, was destroyed. One by one, Julian personally smashed each of her fingers with a hammer, leaving them with comminuted fractures. Eventually, the pain became so overwhelming that she went numb. Her desolate heart was filled with nothing but despair. But Julian wouldn't let her off that easily. Noticing that her sensitivity to pain had dulled, he smiled and ordered his men to bring 2 vials of a drug. "This is a drug used by the CIA for interrogations." Julian's voice was like a phantom's whisper. "It amplifies pain 100-fold, and no matter how much it hurts, you will remain completely conscious." Without another word, he injected both vials into Elena's body. Instantly, every sensation was magnified 1,000 times over. A tidal wave of agony crashed over her, torturing her to the brink of madness. "I hear you called my little Rose a slut?" Julian sneered. "And you wanted to sew her shut? Fine, as you wish. Let's perform that same procedure on you." A jolt of terror shot through Elena. She began to struggle with all her might, but she was already half dead from the torture. Her struggles were futile. Julian's men held her down. They ripped open her clothes and forced her legs apart. Elena's tears had long run dry, yet she couldn't make a sound. "I don't touch any woman's lower body except for Elena's and Jenna's," Julian said coldly. Mr. Davis, you'll perform the sutures." With that, Julian handed a needle and thread to his personal assistant. Seeing this, Jenna put on a show of pleading. "Julian, maybe we should stop. I heard this matron is Auntie Elena's best friend. If she finds out you treated her friend so cruelly, she'll be furious." "Elena doesn't need friends," Julian's voice was frigid. "She has me, that's enough." The surgery began. The steel needle, heated red-hot in a flame, pierced Elena's flesh. She was so weak she could barely move, but the pain was excruciatingly clear. She couldn't scream, couldn't call for help. All she could do was break down in despair, over and over again. In the past, Julian wouldn't even let her wear a short skirt, once possessively declaring that he was the only man who could ever see his woman's body. But now, he had ordered his men to force her legs apart and allowed a group of them to perform this grotesque procedure on her. 28 stitches. A full 28 stitches. Not even the 18th level of hell could inflict such suffering. But the torment Elena endured didn't come from hell. It came from the man she had loved most in this life. After a full night of torture, Elena was thrown onto the street like a broken doll. Her bonds had been cut. She struggled to her feet, her hands trembling as she pulled off the hood. Just then, her professor called, telling her to send her location so the government could dispatch a special forces team to escort her to the ship. The 5 fingers of her right hand were shattered and useless. With her left hand, Elena painstakingly sent her location to her professor. Soon, an SUV pulled up, and several special forces operatives jumped out. Seeing Elena's horrific state, even these hardened soldiers couldn't help but flinch. "Dr. Hayes, what happened? How did you get injured so badly?" Elena just shook her head, no longer wanting to speak of it. "It doesn't matter, just take me to the base. Once I'm at the base, I want you to erase all of my records. I plan to dedicate the rest of my life to research. I'm not coming back. Never again." The soldiers helped Elena into the vehicle. As soon as she was inside, she received a text from Julian. "Elena, don't be angry. If you suspect something is going on between me and Jenna, I'll send her abroad tomorrow and never see her again. You are the most important person in my life. I love you more than anything." Reading the message, Elena's hands began to tremble. She suddenly remembered, the last time she had left with the research team, Julian had kissed the golden heart-shaped locket around her neck, the one with the micro camera, and whispered in a possessive, pathological tone, "Elena, you're mine. Don't even think about escaping. You can't fly out of my hand." Back then, she had willingly worn that locket, willingly let him control her, willingly been his possession. Now, Elena took off the locket. She asked one of the soldiers to mail it back to Julian. As the locket came off, she felt a profound sense of relief. The cool breeze through the car window caressed her face. She closed her eyes, savoring her hard-won freedom. "Julian, I could always fly away. Your palm was never my cage. My love for you was, and now that I don't love you anymore, you'll never find me again." Chapter 8. After avenging Jenna, Julian was eager to rush home and take care of Elena. Elena's attitude toward him had been growing colder and colder lately, which made him deeply uneasy. He had the constant feeling that he was losing his grip on her. This feeling was driving him mad. He had an almost pathological need to possess and control Elena, and he would never allow her to escape his grasp. Seeing Julian so anxious to leave, a flicker of jealousy crossed Jenna's eyes. She threw herself into his arms and said with a sob, "Julian, are you leaving me again? Please don't go, okay? I know you're worried about Auntie Elena, but I'm your wife too. And I was tortured in that disciplinary academy for so long. I'm traumatized. I can't sleep at night without you here. I'm too scared. Julian, I'm not trying to compete with Auntie for your affection, but can you just stay with me for a few more days? I really need you right now." Tears welled in Jenna's eyes, her expression pitifully fragile. Thinking of the suffering she had indeed endured at the academy, Julian's heart softened. "All right, I'll stay with you for a few more days," Julian said in a low voice. "You be good now, and don't hold a grudge against your aunt. She's only hostile towards you because she loves me too much." He paused for a moment, then his tone shifted. "Elena's hostility has been so intense lately. Do you think she's figured something out? It's too dangerous for you to stay in the country. In a little while, I'll arrange for you to go abroad. From now on, you and Elena should never see each other again. It's for the best for both of you." Jenna pouted in dissatisfaction. "I'll do whatever you say, Julian. But after I go abroad, you have to promise to visit me often. Otherwise, your little rose will wither from loneliness." A smile touched Julian's lips. He reached out and stroked her head fondly. "Don't worry, I'll be fair. 1 month with you, 1 month with Elena. I won't favor one over the other." For the next few days, Julian stayed by Jenna's side. But he didn't forget Elena. While he was with Jenna, he constantly sent messages to Elena. "Elena, a project abroad has run into some issues. I need to fly over to handle it. You be good. I'll be back soon. Elena, have you been eating properly while I'm away? You have a sensitive stomach, so you need to eat your meals on time. I'll be back before you know it. If I find you've lost weight when I get back, you can expect a spanking from your husband Elena. I miss you so much. Every second without you is torture. Do you miss me?" However, all of Julian's messages vanished into a black hole. Elena didn't reply to a single one. This made Julian increasingly anxious. In the past, no matter what he sent, Elena would always reply gently. Even if he just sent a simple "I miss you," she would reply with "me too." But now, she wasn't responding at all. Julian finally couldn't take it anymore. No matter how much Jenna clung to him, begging him not to go, he left her behind and sped home. He had to see Elena. Right now, immediately, he couldn't wait another second. Chapter 9. Speeding back to their penthouse, Julian knew something was wrong before he even got out of the car. The entire building was dark. Not a single light was on, and the security guards at the entrance were gone. A stone dropped in Julian's stomach. What happened? Where are the guards? They wouldn't dare abandon their posts without my direct order because of the ruthless way he had consolidated power. Julian had many enemies. He worried they might try to harm Elena, so he had spent a fortune hiring a team of recently discharged military veterans to act as guards for the penthouse. Each guard was armed and patrolled the property 24/7, ensuring no suspicious individuals could get anywhere near. But now, the guards at the gate were gone. The patrolling guards were also nowhere to be seen. A dark premonition crept over Julian. Without a second thought, he burst into the penthouse, shouting, "Elena, Elena, where are you? Answer me right now." The entire penthouse was empty and silent. Not only was Elena gone, but there wasn't a single servant in sight. What the hell is going on? Did my enemies come for revenge? Julian thought, his mind racing. No, that's impossible. There are no signs of a struggle. And how could they make an entire household of people disappear without a trace? Not wasting any more time, Julian pulled out his phone and called the captain of his security team. The call connected almost immediately. Julian's voice was low and dangerous, the pressure in it palpable. "Mark, why are all the guards gone? You'd better have a damned good explanation, or I will personally grind you into dust." "Mr. Vance, you were the one who gave us the time off, sir," the captain said, sounding bewildered. "You told us not to come in for the month. When did I give you time off?" Julian was about to explode. "A week ago," the captain answered respectfully. "You texted me. You said you were taking Mrs. Vance on a vacation and that you were giving all the guards and household staff a month of paid leave." As he spoke, the captain sent Julian a screenshot of the text message. When Julian saw the screenshot, he was stunned. He had never sent that message. Those weren't his words. "I didn't send that message," Julian roared. "My phone must have been hacked for something this major. Didn't you think to call and confirm with me?" "I did, sir," the captain said, sounding wronged. "I called your phone, but you weren't available. Miss Miller answered on your behalf. I confirmed with her several times, and she assured me the message was authentic. She told us to clear out that same night." It had all been Jenna's plan. The guards kept the penthouse locked down tighter than a fortress. To get them out of the way, Jenna couldn't have her hired kidnappers get to Elena. So she had secretly used Julian's phone to text the security captain, sending them all on vacation. Then, she arranged for her men to sneak into the penthouse and abduct Elena. Afterward, she deleted the chat history and the call log, so Julian remained completely in the dark. Now, a week after Elena's kidnapping, Julian was finally seeing the first piece of the puzzle. "Get your asses back here." Now, Julian's voice was a low growl, unable to contain the storm of fury raging inside him. "And on your way, go to the villa in the suburbs and bring me Jenna Miller." Chapter 10. Soon, the security captain and his entire team were back at the penthouse. Brought with them was Jenna, still in her pajamas. Julian's face was a terrifying mask of fury. The entire penthouse was suffocating under an immense pressure. He stared at Jenna, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "Explain. Why did you use my phone to secretly message Mark and tell him to dismiss the entire security detail?" "Julian, what are you talking about? I don't understand." Jenna feigned innocence, her face a picture of confusion. "I didn't text Captain Reynolds, and I certainly didn't tell him to send the guards away." "Still playing dumb with me?" Julian slammed his fist on the table, cracking the solid marble surface. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Elena is missing, she's been kidnapped." While waiting for the guards to bring Jenna, Julian had reviewed the security footage. The cameras had captured the entire kidnapping. Watching the moment Elena was dragged away, Julian's heart seized with a pain so sharp he could barely breathe. He wished he could travel back in time to save the woman he loved more than life itself. But he couldn't. All he could do was watch the screen, helpless, as Elena was taken. In a blind rage, Julian grabbed Jenna by the throat, his eyes bloodshot. Did you conspire with my enemies? Did you plan all of this? Who are your accomplices? Who kidnapped Elena?" Tears streamed down Jenna's face. "Julian, I swear I didn't. Elena is your wife, but she's also my aunt. Why would I conspire with outsiders to kidnap my own aunt? You have to believe me, Julian. I never touched your phone, and I never took a call from Captain Reynolds. He's framing me, he's the traitor, he must be the one who colluded with outsiders to kidnap her." Her story was plausible. Mark Reynolds was also a major suspect, as he was the one who had dismissed all the guards. Julian released Jenna, his expression shifting, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. But at that moment of high tension, the doorbell rang. A soldier in uniform stood there, holding 2 file folders. "Is there a Mr. Julian Vance here?" the soldier asked. "I have 2 classified documents for him. My commanding officer specifically instructed me to ensure they are signed for by Mr. Vance in person." The Vance family was powerful and had connections with the military. Julian forcibly suppressed his rage and stalked to the door to sign for the files. After signing, he tore open the first folder and froze. Inside one folder was the gold, heart-shaped locket he had given Elena. The other contained a certificate of divorce. Chapter 11. 2 weeks ago, Elena had personally submitted the signed divorce papers to the city clerk's office. Now, the divorce was finalized. Because Elena was currently on a classified government mission, the certificate was immediately retrieved by the military upon its issuance. The military then sent an officer to deliver the documents to her. Elena kept her copy of the divorce certificate and asked the military to deliver Julian's copy to him. "Just make sure it gets to him," Elena had said. "Don't mention anything about me. I don't want to see him again, and I don't want any more contact with him." In reality, once Elena entered the research base, all information about her in the outside world was erased by the military. Whether Julian received the certificate or not was meaningless, but Elena wanted a clean, absolute break. Not just in person, but in name as well. She no longer wanted to be his wife, so she made the final decision to have the military deliver it. With the divorce finalized, they were truly finished. Seeing the certificate, Julian couldn't believe his eyes. He grabbed the soldier who delivered it and roared, "What the hell is this? When did Elena and I get divorced? Who gave this to you? Where is Elena now? Who the hell do you think you are, issuing us a divorce certificate? We are not divorced, we will never be divorced. The only way our marriage ends is in death, not divorce." But no matter how much Julian raged, the soldier had only one response. "I'm sorry, sir. My only duty was to deliver the items to you. I have no other information." Julian couldn't get anything out of him. He could only vent his fury by smashing everything in sight. After laying waste to most of the living room, he finally calmed down enough to look at the second file the soldier had brought. Inside was the gold, heart-shaped locket he had given Elena, and inside the locket was the micro camera he had installed. That camera was his eye, allowing him to monitor Elena's every move. Perhaps the camera held the answers to all his questions. "Someone get me a projector," Julian bellowed. He had to see what the camera had recorded. Why had Elena vanished? And where the hell did this damned divorce certificate come from? A guard quickly brought a projector. Julian ordered his men to connect the micro camera and display its footage. The moment the image appeared on the screen, Julian saw it, the footage of Elena being kidnapped that night. His heart instantly clenched. He had already seen it once on his own security system, but the sight still filled him with a murderous rage. He wanted to leap into the image and tear the kidnappers to shreds. But then, the scene took a strange turn. On the screen, Julian watched as the two kidnappers put a black hood over Elena's head and dragged her in front of him. And in that moment, Julian finally saw the kidnappers' faces clearly. They were Jenna's personal bodyguards. Chapter 12. In the footage, Jenna's bodyguards shoved the hooded Elena in front of Julian and announced, "Mr. Vance, this is the matron from the disciplinary academy who abused Miss Miller." With her head covered, Julian hadn't recognized her. Watching the screen, Julian completely broke down. Is this some kind of joke? The person I tortured all night was Elena? My Elena, the one I've cherished since we were children, the one I held so carefully, afraid she would break. No, it's impossible. There must be a mistake. That hooded woman can't be my Elena. In moments of extreme despair, the human mind instinctively denies reality, and Julian was no exception. But the camera didn't lie. He watched, horrified, as the Julian on the screen picked up a hammer and walked toward Elena. Enough, stop it. In a fit of rage, Julian grabbed a chair and smashed the projector to pieces. He didn't have the courage to watch the rest. He couldn't accept that he had tortured Elena for an entire night. He had smashed her fingers with a hammer. He had injected her with a drug to amplify her pain. He had even ordered his men to perform that grotesque suturing procedure on her. What had he done? In that moment, Julian felt his entire world collapse. He couldn't begin to imagine the despair Elena must have felt that night. As he crumbled, Mark Reynolds, the security captain, stepped forward and said pointedly, "Sir, don't blame yourself too much. You were deceived by a malicious person. That's why you did that to Mrs. Vance. It's not your fault." As he said the words, "deceived by a malicious person," Mark shot a pointed glance at Jenna. She had just tried to frame him as a traitor. It was his turn for revenge. His words jolted Julian back to reality. He clawed his way out of his anguish, his bloodshot eyes turning to Jenna with a murderous glare. That one look was enough to make Jenna drop to her knees. "Julian, it wasn't me. I don't know anything," she cried, still trying to play dumb. "I was framed. Someone must have paid off my bodyguards and told them to do it." But this time, no matter what she said, Julian wouldn't believe her. He advanced on her, his face a cold mask of fury. In his hand, he now held a steel pipe that Mark had just handed him. "You bitch!" Without a shred of pity, Julian swung the pipe, striking Jenna with full force. "I was so good to you, and this is how you repay me. Elena is my life since we were kids. I never let anyone lay a single finger on her, and you concoct this vile scheme to make me torture her with my own hands. I would rather it be my own fingers that were smashed. I would never let Elena suffer the slightest pain," Julian roared, swinging the pipe again and again, raining blows down on Jenna. Soon, she was covered in blood, but Julian's rage was far from sated. He ordered his men to pin her hands to the table and screamed hysterically, "Someone bring me a hammer." Jenna's face went white with terror. She sobbed and begged, "No, Julian, please, I know I was wrong, please, spare me, I'll never do it again." Her only answer was Julian's vicious, cold laugh. "Anyone who hurts Elena, I will repay 100 times over. Get ready, Jenna, it's going to be a very long night." Chapter 13. All night, Jenna's screams echoed through the penthouse. Julian was true to his word. Anyone who hurt Elena would be repaid 100 times over. That night, his torture of Jenna was even more brutal, more inhuman. Jenna had schemed to have him smash Elena's 5 fingers, so he smashed all 10 of Jenna's fingers and all 10 of her toes, leaving her completely crippled. Not only that, but he also pulled out every single one of her teeth, one by one. Then, with his own hands, he took a steel needle and sewed her lying mouth shut. And of course, he had her lower body sewn shut as well. Every ounce of pain Elena had suffered that night, he returned to Jenna, multiplied. By the end, Jenna was a mangled, unrecognizable mess, unable to even cry. Julian glanced at her coldly, his voice dripping with venom. "Throw her in the dungeon, post guards, make sure she doesn't die. After I find Elena, I'll deal with her." Slowly. "Yes, sir," the guards replied, dragging Jenna's broken body away. With Jenna dealt with, Julian's mind was consumed by one thought: Elena. He had to find her immediately and explain everything. He was a victim, too. He didn't know what was happening that night. Without a moment's hesitation, Julian summoned all his resources and ordered a full-scale search for Elena. "I don't care what methods you use, find Elena within 3 days," he commanded. "My patience is limited. You know the consequences if you fail." The Vance family's influence in Chicago was immense. Finding one person shouldn't have been difficult. When Jenna had staged her disappearance, his men had found her in a single day. But this time, in their search for Elena, they hit a wall at every turn. All of Elena's personal information, her digital footprint, her very existence, had been scrubbed clean by the military. They couldn't find a single lead. 3 days later, Julian's men returned empty-handed. Julian flew into a rage, and every one of them was whipped for their failure. But no matter how cruel his punishments were, they couldn't find what wasn't there. His men were at a complete loss. Amidst the chaos, Julian suddenly remembered. The man who had delivered the files was a soldier, a special forces operative. How did his Elena get involved with the military? The Hayes family was just a wealthy, old-money dynasty with no military connections. So why would a soldier be delivering documents for Elena? Driven by this question, Julian launched a new investigation. The Vance family did have relatives in the military. Military intelligence was the hardest to obtain, but the Vance family's power was formidable. After pulling a lot of strings and expending considerable resources, Julian finally learned the truth. Elena had joined a top-secret national research project. The project's base was located in the Atlantic Ocean. Without a moment of hesitation, Julian flew to the Atlantic. Chapter 14. The research project Elena had joined was classified. The base itself was not a place one could simply walk into. However, the Vance Corporation also owned a pharmaceutical company that had contracts with the military. Coupled with Julian's family connections within the military hierarchy, he managed, after some maneuvering, to gain access to the Atlantic Research Base under the guise of a consultant. At that very moment, Elena was leading a research team, working on extracting compounds from a newly captured giant octopus. The new drug they were developing was related to marine biology, which was why the base was built in the Atlantic. The self-healing ability of an octopus is astounding. Its tentacles can regenerate indefinitely after being severed, Elena was explaining. Our mission is to extract this regenerative factor from its tentacles and develop it into a drug. If we succeed, it will represent a generational leap forward for the entire medical field. Elena had always been the technical lead, an expert at operating the high-end equipment used for extracting these delicate compounds. But before she came to the base, Julian had smashed her fingers with a hammer. All 5 fingers of her right hand had suffered comminuted fractures. Although the military had arranged for the best surgeons to treat her upon her arrival, the damage was irreversible. Elena's right hand was permanently disabled. She could no longer operate the precision instruments. She had no choice but to transition to theoretical research, teaching the other team members the practical skills she could no longer perform herself. Julian found her in the base's main laboratory, patiently guiding a graduate student through the extraction process. "Elena, I finally found you," Julian rushed forward, pulling her into a desperate embrace, ignoring everyone else in the room. "Do you have any idea how insane I've been, thinking about you all this time?" Elena froze. She never imagined she would see Julian here in a secure military facility. This was a secret base built on the high seas, a location not even visible on satellite maps. And her project was a matter of national security. How in the world did he find her? She had decided to never see him again for the rest of her life. Why was he here? Her emotions were a tangled mess. She struggled, pushing him away, refusing his touch. "Mr. Vance, we are divorced. Please have some self-respect." Meeting her cold, indifferent gaze, Julian felt a sharp pain in his chest. His voice trembled. "Elena, I know you're still angry with me, but what happened that night? It wasn't on purpose. I didn't know the person they brought to me was you. I was a victim too. I was deceived by Jenna. It was all her scheme to drive us apart. If we become enemies over this, then she wins." A bitter, sorrowful laugh escaped Elena's lips. "Hasn't she already won? She got what she wanted. She married you. You held a wedding for her in the Caribbean." Chapter 15. Julian froze, his face a mask of disbelief. "You, how do you know about that?" Because I was there, Elena said, a mocking curve to her lips. I attended your wedding. My apologies, I didn't have any cash on me at the time, so I couldn't give you a wedding gift. In that instant, Julian's breath caught in his throat. He opened his mouth, struggling to form the words. Elena, listen to me, let me explain. It's not what you think. I had my reasons, but Elena had no desire to hear his excuses. She cut him off without hesitation. Reasons? Julian, you can lie to yourself with that excuse, but don't you dare try to fool me with it. During those 2 years you were disabled, it's true I wasn't there to take care of you. But why was I gone? To find a cure for you. For you, I went to the most scorching part of the desert, braving sandstorms with my research team to find a plant that contained the right compounds. We faced quicksand, we were caught in storms, we nearly died more times than I can count. But I never gave up because I wanted to heal you. More than anyone else on that team, I prayed for that drug to be a success. And you. While I was risking my life for you, what were you doing? You were sleeping with my niece. You got involved with Jenna 3 years ago. You were sneaking around behind my back for 3 whole years. You even used a business trip as an excuse to fly off and marry her. Julian, look at what you've done. Is there a single action in that long list of betrayals that can be excused by reasons? You have no reasons, you just couldn't keep it in your pants. Elena's words were like daggers, each one piercing his heart. Julian felt like he couldn't breathe, but he still tried to explain. No, Elena, I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. What happened with Jenna was an accident. You weren't there, I was paralyzed. My mental state was a wreck. I couldn't accept being a cripple, and I couldn't accept you being gone. I had no way to vent my misery, so I turned to alcohol to numb myself. After you left, I was drunk almost every day. When things happened with Jenna, I wasn't in my right mind. I was drunk. I mistook her for you. Elena, you have to believe me, I don't love Jenna. In my eyes, she's just a kid. When she started taking care of me, I cursed at her constantly, told her to get lost. But not only did she not leave, she took advantage of me when I was drunk. Elena, I swear to God, I truly thought she was you. That's the only reason I slept with her. I just missed you so much. I was hallucinating, I missed you so much. And she looks a little like you, and I was drunk. Elena, you are the only one I have ever loved. You are the only one in my heart. Jenna doesn't even compare to the dirt on your shoes. Faced with Julian's passionate declaration, Elena's heart remained cold, unmoved. She looked at him with icy clarity and said, her words cutting straight to the bone, Julian, stop acting like the victim. The first time, maybe you could lie to yourself and say you were drunk and mistook her for me. But what about the second time, the third, and the countless times after that? 3 years, 3 whole years if you had stopped, just once, if you had ended your affair with Jenna, I never would have found out. You would have had a chance to save us. But you didn't. You made the same mistake over and over again, and you even married her after doing all that. How do you have the audacity to come here and beg for my forgiveness? Chapter 16. 3 years, over 1,000 days. Julian had countless opportunities to end his illicit relationship with Jenna. But he didn't. He wanted both his angel and his temptress. He arrogantly believed he had hidden it so well that Elena would never find out. But there are no secrets that can be kept forever. Lies are eventually exposed. A person who betrays true love is not worthy of forgiveness. Julian, I don't want to hear your excuses, and I don't want to see you ever again, Elena said, taking a deep breath and pointing to the door. Please leave, now, or I will call base security and have you forcibly removed. Of course, Julian refused to leave. He grabbed her wrist, his dark eyes wild with a manic obsession. Elena, I'm not leaving. You're my life. Unless I'm dead, I will never be separated from you. I know you're furious right now, but we have so many years of history together. How can we let someone like Jenna destroy that? And my marrying her wasn't about love, it was out of obligation. Jenna is still a kid. Even though I was drunk, it was her first time. I had to take responsibility for that. But I don't love her. You are the only person I have ever loved. In my heart, Jenna is nothing. As he spoke, Julian pulled out his phone. To prove to Elena how little Jenna meant to him, he pulled up the video of him torturing her that night. See, Elena, I've already gotten your revenge for you. Julian's voice was verging on madness. I told you, anyone who hurts you, I will repay 100 times over. Even if it's Jenna, I will not spare her. Watching the gruesome images of Jenna's mangled body, Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't believe Julian could be so ruthless, even to Jenna. She found him terrifying, because she could see that, at one point, Julian genuinely did have feelings for Jenna. When he liked her, he had spoiled her rotten, treated her like a princess. But now that his feelings had changed, he could, in the blink of an eye, torture her into an unrecognizable state with such horrifying cruelty. Jenna had brought it on herself, and Elena felt no sympathy for her. But Julian's ability to switch from affection to monstrosity so quickly was deeply unsettling. This man, when pushed, was capable of anything. "Elena, it was all my fault before. I apologize. I repent," Julian begged, clinging to her hand. "You can hit me, you can curse me, do whatever you want. But please, please don't leave me. You are my life. I can't live without you." Elena closed her eyes, hiding the exhaustion in them. "It's too late, Julian. We can't go back. After that night of torture, I have no love left for you. All I have is hatred and fear." Having said this, Elena felt utterly drained. She had no more energy to argue with him. She pressed the emergency alarm on the wall, summoning the Special Forces soldiers stationed at the base. Chapter 17. The research project was a military initiative, so armed Special Forces operatives guarded every corner of the base. While Julian might be all-powerful on the outside here, he had to follow the rules. He couldn't act recklessly. Otherwise, he'd find himself in deep trouble. The base was located in international waters, where killing someone wasn't technically illegal. If he dared to cause trouble on a military base, one bullet would be all it took. They wouldn't even need to dispose of the body. They could just toss it into the sea for the sharks. The moment Elena hit the alarm, soldiers burst in, rifles raised. "Dr. Hayes, what's wrong?" "I suspect an enemy spy has infiltrated the base," Elena said coolly, her gaze flicking to Julian. Her voice was merciless. "This man is no consultant. I don't know his real identity, but I am certain he knows nothing about advanced pharmaceutical research. I suspect he's a spy sent by a hostile power. You should take him into custody and interrogate him thoroughly." Julian's consultant identity was indeed a fabrication. Only the highest levels of military command knew who he really was. The soldiers guarding the base had no idea. Elena's accusation immediately put them on high alert. They raised their rifles and aimed them at Julian. "Hands up, don't move," Julian was stunned. He never thought Elena would go this far to get rid of him, even falsely accusing him of being an enemy spy. And he had, in fact, concealed his true identity. If the soldiers took him away, his cover would be blown. The Vance family had military connections, so they might not actually harm him, but getting back into the base after this would be next to impossible. Elena, the brilliant scientist, had played her hand perfectly. She knew that if she told the soldiers he was her ex-husband and was harassing her, they might see it as a domestic dispute and refuse to get involved. They might also reason that a man who could infiltrate a military base must have powerful backing, and it wasn't worth antagonizing him over one scientist. For a number of reasons, the soldiers would have been reluctant to get involved. But now, by accusing him of being a spy, she had forced their hand. Spy or not, they had to take him in for questioning. Once the situation escalated, his fake identity would be exposed, and the military would be forced to expel him from the base. And once he was out, getting back in would be harder than climbing to heaven. "Elena, do you hate me this much?" Julian asked, his face a mask of sorrow. "To get rid of me, you'd accuse me of being an enemy spy." Elena looked away, unable to bear the sight of him. "I don't know you. Please don't try to associate yourself with me." Her coldness was another deep cut to his heart. Julian let out a bitter laugh. "Elena, you are so cruel. But no matter how cruel you are, I will always love you. I won't let you leave me. Even if you hate me, I'll force you to stay by my side." As he spoke, Julian unbuttoned his trench coat, revealing that he had strapped his entire torso with explosives. Chapter 18. In an instant, the entire base went on high alert. The research staff scattered in panic, while the Special Forces team, now in tactical gear, formed a line with riot shields at the front. "Mr. Vance, I don't care what your motives are, but I need you to drop your weapon and surrender immediately," the base commander said, his face grim. "You are surrounded. There is no escape." Julian laughed. "I wouldn't be so sure. We're indoors. Your snipers can't get a clean shot." And from where I'm standing, I can see every single one of your men. If anyone makes a sudden move, if anyone even thinks about shooting me, I will press this detonator and we will all go to hell together." The commander's face turned livid. Julian was right. Indoors, a sniper was useless. His men had rifles, but any move they made would be visible to Julian. They couldn't risk it. No one could guarantee they could take him down before he triggered the explosives. "State your terms," the commander said after a long moment, his voice tight with anger. "I know you're not an enemy spy. There's no need for you to sacrifice yourself and take all of us with you." "Finally, someone who gets it," Julian smiled. "That's right, I couldn't care less what you're researching here. I just want to take Elena with me. Let me leave with Elena and I will remove the explosives. No one gets hurt." In an instant, all eyes turned to Elena. Her face was pale, her eyes blazing with fury as she stared at Julian. "You're despicable, Julian," she bit out. "Using the lives of everyone on this base to threaten me." "Elena, I'm only doing this because I love you too much," Julian said, clutching his chest. "For me, if I can't be with you, I would rather die." Elena's expression grew even more strained. Julian's tactic, though vile, was effective. Elena was fundamentally a good person. She could never stand by and watch him detonate a bomb that would kill everyone. So, gritting her teeth, she agreed. "Fine, Julian, I'll go with you." The dark clouds on Julian's face instantly parted, replaced by a radiant hope. He was ecstatic. "Elena, I knew you couldn't bear to leave me. Don't worry. From now on, for the rest of our lives, I will be devoted to you and you alone. I will never betray you again. You are my everything. I will dedicate my entire being to you." Julian then called his men and arranged for a helicopter to pick them up. Soon, the Vance Corporation helicopter arrived, hovering over the base as it had no place to land. Julian's men dropped a rope ladder, and Julian began to lead Elena up towards the aircraft. Throughout the entire process, his hand was clamped around hers like a vice, refusing to let go for even a second. He seemed terrified that if he loosened his grip, she would vanish before his eyes. Elena shot him a cold look. "Julian," she said, her tone deceptively casual, "I'm on the helicopter with you now. Aren't you going to take off the explosives?" Julian laughed. "Elena, did I scare you? Don't be afraid. I'll take it off right now." "Don't worry, I would never hurt you. I just can't bear the thought of you leaving me. As long as you stay by my side obediently, I won't lose control. I won't do these crazy things." As he spoke, Julian began to dismantle the explosive strapped to his body. It was awkward with one hand, so he let go of Elena. The moment he did, Elena lunged for the helicopter door and threw it open. "Julian, I would rather die than ever go back to you," she yelled, a cold smile on her face. Then, without a moment's hesitation, she jumped. Chapter 19. Seeing the resolute look in Elena's eyes and her body plummeting from the helicopter, Julian felt his world shatter. Without a second thought, he dove out of the helicopter after her. "Elena, I won't let you leave me," he screamed into the wind, his face a mask of grim determination. "Even in death, we will be together." Seconds later, they both crashed into the vast, churning ocean. Fortunately, the helicopter was equipped with an inflatable life raft. Julian's men quickly deployed it and jumped into the water to rescue them. In the end, both Julian and Elena were pulled from the sea. And Elena found herself back in the penthouse, the gilded cage she thought she had escaped. The repeated shocks had destabilized Julian's mental state. He became even more paranoid and obsessive. He was terrified that if he so much as blinked, Elena would disappear. He canceled all of his work to watch over her every second of every day. He couldn't even trust himself to sleep, afraid she would escape while he was unconscious. To prevent her from leaving, he commissioned a custom-made pair of handcuffs. One cuff was locked around Elena's damaged right wrist, the other around his own left wrist. "There, now you can never leave me," Julian whispered, his voice laced with a terrifying madness. "Elena, just bear with it. It might be uncomfortable at first, but you'll get used to it." A mocking smile touched Elena's lips. "I'll get used to it. Of course, I will. My right hand is already permanently crippled by you. It doesn't matter if you lock it up or not. It's useless either way." Her words were like 1,000 tiny needles piercing Julian's heart. He could barely breathe through the pain. "Elena, I'm sorry," Julian choked out. "I know saying sorry 1,000,000 times can never undo the harm I've caused you, but I'll do anything to earn your forgiveness. Anything." After saying this, as if making a monumental decision, he ordered his men to bring him a hammer. "Elena, I told you I would never spare anyone who hurt you," Julian said, his face cold and hard. "I meant it. Even if the person who hurt you was me. I may not have known it was you they brought to me that night, but I was the one who crippled your hand. I accept that. Since I smashed your 5 fingers, I will now give you 5 of mine. My left hand is chained to your right. If your hand is crippled, mine should be crippled with it." As he spoke, Julian placed his left hand on the table. He raised the hammer, gritted his teeth, and with a surge of violent determination, brought it down on his own hand. Arg! A gut-wrenching scream tore from his throat. His left pinky was a mess of blood and shattered bone. "Elena, as long as it makes you feel better, you can punish me however you want." "I'm willing," Julian gasped, his teeth clenched. "All the pain I inflicted on you, you can return to me multiplied. If I so much as flinch, I'm not a man." With that, he raised the hammer again and brought it down a second time. Crack, the second blow landed. Julian was drenched in a cold sweat. "Elena," he said, panting, "we are one. From now on, I will be your right hand, and you will be my right hand. Let's never be apart again, okay?" But Elena didn't even glance at him. No matter how he tortured himself, she would not forgive him. She would give him no reaction. In that moment, Julian felt a pain that was sharper than shattered fingers. It was the pain of his own heart breaking, but he forced a smile. "It's okay, Elena. It's okay if you don't forgive me now. I will spend the rest of my life atoning for my sins." With that, Julian swung the hammer a third time. Then a fourth and a fifth. His entire left hand was a ruin, blood pooling on the table. Seeing this, Elena finally turned to look at him. "Julian, do you think this is over? Don't forget what else you did that night." Julian's breath hitched. He didn't need a reminder. He remembered with horrifying clarity what else he had done. He had ordered his men to perform a suturing procedure on the woman he loved most in the world. Chapter 20. When Elena was brought to the Atlantic base, her lower body was still sutured shut. The base had medics, but Elena's injuries were so severe that they didn't dare operate. The base commander had to make an emergency call to military command, requesting their top surgeon be flown in. When the surgeon saw the mangled, infected flesh of Elena's lower body, even he had gasped in shock. It had been over 3 months, and her body still hadn't fully healed. How could she ever forgive Julian? Even though he hadn't known it was her that night, his actions had become an eternal nightmare for her. Now, just seeing him made her remember that night, made her body tremble uncontrollably. There was no possibility of them ever getting back together. Julian knew it too. He knew the wound he had inflicted on her was too deep, too brutal. Smashing his 5 fingers was nothing. Even if he shattered every bone in his body, it wouldn't be enough for her to forgive him. "Elena, don't be like this. Please just give me one more chance," Julian pleaded in agony. "I know that if we're being fair, I should take this hammer and destroy my own lower body as well. But I can't become a eunuch. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, happily. Elena, how about this? From now on, every night, I will have my men whip me 99 times with a thorned whip. And before each whipping, I'll inject myself with that drug that amplifies pain. If that's not enough for you, you can whip me yourself. You can beat me with a steel pipe, whatever it takes to make you feel better, anything you want." But Elena just coldly turned her face away. "I have no interest in torturing you. I just want you to let me go forever." Her absolute refusal pierced Julian's heart, but even in his pain, all he wanted was to hold her tighter, to never let go. "Elena, I know you're angry. It's okay to be angry right now, I understand. I will slowly earn back your forgiveness," Julian said, smiling, deceiving himself. For the next month, Julian was true to his word. Every night, he had his men lash him with a thorned whip until he was covered in blood, his body a canvas of wounds. In the dungeon below, Jenna was whipped alongside him. Every day, she endured 99 lashes, after which Julian's doctors would patch her up, keeping her in a state of living hell, unable to live and forbidden to die. But no matter how Julian repented, no matter how he punished himself, Elena remained unmoved. At first, she would say a word or two to him, always dripping with sarcasm, but at least she spoke. After the first day, however, she fell silent. No matter how he apologized, how he begged, Elena maintained a stony-faced silence, not uttering a single word. "Elena, please, don't do this to me." Julian was on the verge of a breakdown. "Just say something, anything. Even if you just curse me, that's fine." In response to his desperate pleas, Elena offered only 4 cold words. "Let me go." "Impossible, Elena. Unless I'm dead, I will never let you go," Julian replied without hesitation. And so, Elena turned her face away again, her silence returning. She did her best to block out the world around her, not to see, not to hear, not to think. She acted as if Julian didn't exist. Whatever he said, whatever he did, she didn't care. Julian tried desperately to win her over. He bought her the world's most expensive jewels. He personally cooked her favorite meals. He took her to beautiful, scenic places. But no matter what he did, Elena remained silent, not even gracing him with a glance. It was as if she had become a lifeless doll overnight, unable to cry, laugh, or speak. As the days turned into weeks, Julian was haunted by the feeling that even though Elena was right beside him, he could never truly grasp her. Chapter 21. After several more months of this mutual torment, Julian finally broke. "Elena, do you hate me this much?" he cried out, his voice cracking with despair. "I've tortured myself into this inhuman state, and you still won't even look at me. I'm not even asking for your forgiveness anymore, I just want a chance to make it up to you. Is that too much to ask?" But in the face of Julian's hysterical outburst, Elena offered the same 4 ice-cold words. "Let me go." Never, absolutely not. Julian was driven to the brink of madness by her indifference. He panted, his voice a raw, desperate scream. "Elena, I told you the only way you're leaving my side is if I'm dead," and so, Elena turned her gaze away, once again becoming the silent, unmoving doll. Even with Julian right in front of her, she kept him locked out of her world. She wouldn't speak to him, she wouldn't even look at him. Julian felt as if his heart were bleeding. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Elena, is that it? Is my death the only thing that will make you forgive me?" Elena looked at him coldly. They had been torturing each other like this for over half a year. She was tired. If death was the only way to be free of him, she was willing to try. A small smile touched Elena's lips. She stared at Julian and said in a low voice, "Julian, let's play a game." It was the first time she had smiled at him in months. Julian was mesmerized. In that moment, he would have done anything for her. If she had asked for his life, he would have given it. "Yes," he agreed eagerly. "Elena, what game do you want to play?" "Whatever you want, I'll play with you." "Let's gamble with our lives," Elena said softly. "Julian, I can't forgive you, so I'm leaving the choice to fate. Let's play Russian roulette. 1 gun, 6 chambers, 3 bullets. We take turns pointing it at our heads and pulling the trigger. If, in the end, we both survive, it means fate has forgiven you on my behalf. I will honor that decision and forgive you one last time. And if one of us dies, the game is over. We'll both be free." Julian immediately grabbed her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "Elena, if you die, I will not hesitate to pull the trigger and follow you to the next world." But his declaration of love earned no response from Elena. She remained cold. "Julian, if you die, I will not follow you. I will forget you completely and live a good life." Another sharp pain shot through Julian's heart, but he said nothing. He knew he had long lost the right to ask her to die for him. The game was incredibly dangerous. With 3 bullets in 6 chambers, the chance of death was 50-50. But Julian agreed. He knew this might be his only chance to win her forgiveness. He ordered his men to bring him a revolver. "Elena, I love you. I can't bear to make you risk your life in a gamble with me," Julian said, holding the gun. "So we won't take turns. I'll take all 3 shots myself. If I survive, it means the universe itself is demanding that you forgive me. You can't go against the will of the universe. You must forgive me." Elena lowered her eyes and whispered a single word. "Fine." But in her heart, she thought, if after 3 shots, Julian is still alive, I will snatch the gun and put a bullet in my own head. She would rather die than ever be with him again. Julian, unaware of her thoughts, took a deep breath, raised the revolver, and pressed the muzzle to his temple. "Elena, I love you," he said, staring into her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes, smiling as he confessed his love one last time. Then he pulled the trigger. Click, an empty chamber. A smile spread across Julian's face. "Elena, 2 more to go. I believe my love for you can conquer anything." He pulled the trigger a second time. Click, another empty chamber. Julian was unharmed. Elena, only one shot left, he said, his gaze fixed on her. I love you, may the god of love protect me. He pulled the trigger a third time, bang the bullet flew, blood splattered. Julian had betrayed love, and the god of love offered him no protection. Watching Julian's body crumple to the floor in a pool of blood, Elena's eyes welled up with tears. After all, they had loved each other. Their love had been a raging fire. Now, faced with death, how could she remain completely unmoved? Julian, this time it's truly goodbye, Elena whispered. She found the key to the handcuffs on his body, unlocked her wrist, and walked away without looking back. She was finally free, and she would keep her promise. She would live a good life. Elena returned to the research base in the Atlantic. She dedicated the rest of her life to science and never married again. There was no solving the puzzle of love, and she had no desire to waste any more of her life on something so fleeting. Her life, she realized, held more than love. It held science and a horizon of her own.